Good morning, everybody. Warm welcome to all of you today at the 8th European Creative Industry Summit here in Vienna at this wonderful location. And I want to have a special word of welcome to highly esteemed guests among us, which is Mr. Harold Mare, Mrs. Minister Margrethe Schramböck, and Euro Commissioner Tibor Navracsics. We're very happy to have you here today. Further, we also have other highly esteemed guests. Mr. Christian Ehler, very welcome, of course. Mrs. Matthea Famels and Director General Barbara Wolfersberger from the Netherlands. And of course, there are many other representatives of other ministries of culture, media, economics, and from several countries, but too many to name them all. So very welcome to all of you. My name is Frits Grotenhuis from the Netherlands. I will be your moderator today. And we are very happy that we have this summit here in Austria during the EU presidency here in Austria this half year. And I also like to thank the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber for having us here today. This is a wonderful place. And then I would like to give the floor to two of the leading people behind this event. Gerin Trautenberger, as president of Kreativwirtschaft Austria and board member of ECBN, and Bernd Vesel, managing director of ECBN. A warm applause, please, for them.
Should we talk now?
Yes, please.
I thought we do it together. Yes, so my name is Gerin Trautenberger, as Fritz already mentioned. We are very, very happy that we welcome all of you today. It's for us a milestone in our over 15 years existence to bring two things together, to show our international work as a Kreativwirtschaft Austria, what we do on European level, and of course that we are part of the European presidency. For us, it's important to show on the stage. I should go. That's also nice. Yeah. For us, it's important to show that we are proud to be part of the Austrian strategy for creative industries, and we are part of this new way of showing that the cross innovation in creative industries is working. We want to show that working with creatives is reasonable, not only reasonable, but also brings more profits for the companies and for the enterprises. We want to thank also the president of the Chamber of Commerce that we can use this wonderful place. It's not always the case that we are allowed to come on the last floor of this building. So we are really honored, and you are honored also, I see, to be here. Thank you for organizing, my team I want to thank for organizing this wonderful event, and I want to thank also Bernd that you brought ECBN to Austria. So I give you now the microphone, I guess.
Yeah, a warm welcome from me and from the European Creative Business Network, ECBN. We are a network of 60 agencies from 23 nations and supporting culture and creative industries. To say it in a picture, we are not representing the car buyers, but we are representing the construction industries, laying out the infrastructure for millions of drivers. So you could say the millions of users and visitors in the creative industries. We are these agencies in 23 nations. We reach out to 80% of the workforce of the CCI. You know, it's 12 million full-time jobs in the creative industries. So don't be afraid, we are not a workers' union, but we are just a different industry. We turn phones to mobiles, which are global markets in film, music, fashion, heritage in your hand. In fact, nowadays, in almost every hand. We turn bricks and stones into city icons and architecture. We turn just simple words into literature and poetry. And of course, we also turn user manuals, which you don't want to read, into exciting games. So in fact, the creative industries, we see it as a transformative industry. The DNA of our sector is transformation. And that's why we are here today. Our aim with this conference, with this presidency, is to give a support to transform innovation policy, to embrace more of the powers and potentials of creative industries. To this end, we say thank you to the initiatives of Christian Ehler and many others in Parliament. Thanks to the EIT for bringing forward proposals to involve innovation funding for culture and creative industries. So one of the big questions in the room, the unspoken elephant, so to speak, is the creative industries ready to do large-scale projects? Are we ready for this? So if you look back 10 years, where the very first report in 2008 on the economics of culture was published, where the very first agenda on culture was commissioned by Barroso, you can see the creative industries have changed. There was an agenda for spillover. We put and forced it. We supported the agenda for hubs, new infrastructures for the creative industries, and now lately, since 2 years, the topic of cross-innovation. And here, Austria, and that's why it's such a great pleasure to be, especially here in Austria, the ministry here is one of the leading innovators in policy for creative industries by setting up a cross-innovation strategy. So we are here exactly at the right point to learn how to do it on the European level. So you could say, in other words, to say it short, the creative industries have grown up. Today, this summit is a kind of proof of this concept itself. We assemble here in this room today agencies, representatives, directors of funders which sum up to more than 100 million euro in turnover per year. It is from agencies in Hamburg to Košice, from Milano to Brussels, from Creative England to Creative Styria, from the Ars Electronica to Click & L in the Netherlands. These people later in the afternoon are the chairs and experts making the open spaces, and in fact they are influencers and makers in the nations. They are your partners to build consortiums, to build funding lines in large scale. The latest sign for me that the creative industries has grown up has been the fact that the OECD is since this year engaging in the topic of creative industries and will give a big conference on this in Venice in autumn. And we are most happy that they are even here and honor our activities. So the last question, why transform innovation policy? Why is it worth transforming it? And we at least believe for the future of cities, there is no way without redesigning mobility, for the future of health, for the future of heritage, of startups, of digital. You need creative industries. You all know digital are just ones and zeros. Only the interface design makes it usable. And interface design, web design is the creative industries. So it's all so intermingled that creative industries is a necessary part for the future of Europe. If you look at CCI, they don't need funding. If it's Gerkan, Armani, Bertelsmann, the Gamescom, they all thrive. So we are not here to ask for funding. We are here to make an offer to policy that we would be your partner to scale and to step up. If you ask us, can we do Blockbuster? We would answer, we invented Blockbuster. We invented it. If a car today wants to be special, where does it go? To the Guggenheim Museum, to a cultural blockbuster. If a tech company collaborates with Ars Electronica, here you have the same thing. And even Chancellor Merkel is now visiting the Gamescom if she wants to look cool. So we assure you, we as ECBN can do impact policy. And I think our sector is ready to take more responsibility for Europe. And we hope ECBN will continue to be your partner to do so. So I'm happy to open this conference and wish you all a successful summit and new cooperations in FP9 and our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gerin Trautenberger and Bernd Vesel. Then your introduction, thanks a lot for that, is also a nice bridge towards three highly esteemed speakers of today. We will talk about setting the policy agenda beyond 2021. We have Mr. Harald Mare, President of the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. We have Mrs. Margrethe Schrambeuk, Minister for Digital and Economic Affairs. And we have Mr. Tibor Navracsics, EU Commissioner for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. And I would like to invite Mr. Harald Mare first to have your speech. Please, the floor is yours.
My dear Commissioner, dear Tibor, the Minister, dear Margareta, Christian, Bernd, Garin, you and your team are doing a great job. It's a particularly special moment for me, touching this very specific topic, which I was very much interested in during my term in the government, to have now this very special meeting under the Austrian European Union's presidency here in Vienna and in the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber, which I'm now chairing. As some of you know, I do like the topic very much, and I do also like the new framing very much. Beyond, looking beyond, moving beyond, traditional forms of cooperation, traditional industries, looking towards a more translatory effect of what the creative industries could achieve. And I therefore am really honored to welcome you all here as members of the European creative industries community, but also policymakers and very high government and on the European level, decision makers. I'm very pleased about the fact that you're also here in Vienna, because it's the home country of very innovative personalities, such as Mozart, Schrödinger, Suttner, Hayek, Freud, just to name a few. Of course, there are much, much more. It's a country of inventors and innovators. A country with a very special cultural heritage, as you all know, and with a, let me say, pioneering spirit that has ever since brought together research and science with arts and culture, and of course, in the end, business. Where do all these different threads of the innovation process come together? It is, of course, with you, the members of the creative industries, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, I do think you have a very specific role in meeting the upcoming challenges we face, not only as businesses, but as a European society as a whole. Never before, I do think, has innovation been more important for Europe. Why is this the case? Some say it's quite obvious, but let's look at the facts. The economic and social framework conditions have changed dramatically over the past few decades, and this momentum is even increasing. Digital business models, as already said, are turning a lot of things upside down. Data is becoming a traded commodity already. Markets are being taken over by new key technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, microelectronics, in very different cases, bio, nano, and genetic technologies, and also photonics for the ones that are already into these topics. Climate change, of course, lack of resources, migration, and aging society are becoming a reality, or have already become reality. And all these changes give rise to new solutions coming up from different sectors. Europe's mission, I do deeply believe, must therefore be to catch up with the world's most innovative countries and regions. So it's about a race of becoming innovation leader. Not only in a technological context, but if you read innovation in a broader context, also in a social context. You will now all be wondering how this mission can be successful, because it's not a very easy one. To become leaders of innovation, Austria as our home country, but Europe as a whole, as our common region and union, will need a broader understanding of innovation, as I said, and a more sustainable and self-reinforcing culture, I do think, of innovation. To enable this, we must strengthen our innovation competence, and most of all, and this is personally, in my view, extremely important, we must create a better environment for innovation. To be more specific, very specific, we need greater freedom, not only economic freedom, but also freedom in the area of research and all the other sectors being active in the area of innovation, as well as a new approach to future challenges and solutions, a very innovation-friendly, creativity-friendly approach. And we need improved priorities in policy making, in innovation and strategic openness, I call it all the time, in various fields. And most of all, and this is the very specific, very strategic point I want to make, we need to bring in new partners. Some of the new partners, being member of the creative industry, is already sitting here. It needs new broadly structured networks of cooperation. It's not only about competition, the approach we had in the past, it's about combining the approach of competition and cooperation in a very new way. And for me, the creative industries are amongst the most important players in the race of European innovation leadership, because they are among those new partners at the very core. Creative professionals are, as we tend to know, early adopters and pioneers of innovation, constantly developing and testing brave new ideas. They experiment with new technologies and new business models. And the innovation process in the creative industries tends to be, as we observe it right now, broadly application-driven, user-oriented. And this leads to innovation that takes place directly at the interface between companies and at the end consumers. And the best part about this, the inherent transformation power, Garion and Bernd already mentioned, of the creative industries allows for innovations to be transferred to other industries, traditional industries, and regional innovation systems. And this is commonly referred to as the now very, maybe much too often used brand of crossover effects. According to our own 7th report of the Austrian creative industries, just to give you a homegrown example, already 1 out of 2 creative businesses gives rise to innovations in other industries. So 50% of the work our creative sector is doing is directly influencing other industrial sectors and branches. And in the race for global innovation leadership, the creative industry, as important allies, I do think must be taken much more seriously. It's not a small part. It's not an unimportant part. It's not, something added to the traditional sectors. It's moved to the very core of our future innovation capacity. And I do think the creative industries are just as important for facilitating the development of a new culture of innovation in Austria, in Europe as a whole, compared to any other part of traditional innovators we have at hand. So, in order to establish innovation ecosystems, we need art and culture and the creative industries, and we have to bring in, of course, parts of civil society that are interested, and that means unleashing all the creative power Europe has at hand. Involving new players is, for me, the key factor to increase our innovation power and therefore the competitiveness of our different European industries. So, how can we make this happen? Which framework conditions are needed? What are the challenges faced? How do we have to restructure the financing models? I so do think these questions and many more at hand are very important, and you have come together here today to talk about it. And I hope that the summit today will find very brilliant answers for all these questions, and maybe during the summit much more questions to be addressed will arise. This is why I would like to thank you all for coming to Vienna and for meeting here under the umbrella of Austria's presidency, the European Union. So as I said, the world is changing. You can look towards the southeast Asian region. The minister and I have just been there with our chancellor to see how the dynamics in the innovation area is increasing. They're constantly on a monthly basis with 1.4 billion people in China, 1.3 billion people in India, 280 million people in Indonesia, and so on. So nearly 4 billion people in the whole there, and the innovation power is constantly shifting there. A lot of people say the challenges we are facing are unsolvable for us. And I sometimes refer then back to J.R.R. Tolkien's book, The Lord of the Rings. The first part, The Fellowship of the Ring, where the Frodo Hobbit, the main character, the ring bearer, is sitting deep beneath the mines of Moria, the Dwarfen Kingdom, and he is really feeling the burden he has to bear. And he's talking to the wizard Gandalf and saying, I wish none of this had happened to me. And the wizard is answering, so do all who have to live to see such times. But it's not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Therefore, you all can be game changers. Thank you very much for coming to Vienna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marer. Then I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Margarethe Schramberg, Minister for Digital and Economic Affairs. Please, the floor is yours.
Mr. President, dear Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be with you here today. I just arrived yesterday night. I was visiting the White House on the important topics of the European Union and the US in trade. So I'm very happy to be here with you today because after the meeting I will immediately leave into Innsbruck, where we have the informal council and two major topics. This is the trade situation with the US and the reformation of WTO. So I'm very happy to be with you here today, and I'm happy that you are joining us here in Austria, in Vienna, during the time of our council presidency. because you are an important part of this economy, and I would say you are making a difference, because you should be the creative ones. You should be the most innovative ones, the ones who are ahead, who are helping us in governments to understand better what innovation is about and what this digital transformation means. Because it is much more than just a transformation in technology. If we are thinking back to when I was young, I was still using a telephone which was a fixed wired telephone and was only a quarter of a telephone. So when I wanted to call somebody, I had to press this little button and wait until the line was free. Unfortunately for our neighbors, it was always me on the phone, and they had to wait and not me. But we can see that the world is changing so dramatically. And now we have these supercomputers in our pockets, and we have new forms of communication. I would say very creative forms of communication, which only science fiction sometimes can invent. And there is this idea that all are working, especially you, are working to make science fiction reality. And if in some science fiction books or films we see those guys walking around with the gadgets and everything, almost everything is there. Just the beaming is not there, but we have a Professor Zeiling in Austria who is working hard on that too. And I put a lot of pressure, as long as I'm minister, I put a lot of pressure on him on that. So for you, it's important to help us, and for us, it's important to help you. We need to lay out the framework and the conditions so that you find a surrounding that it's easy to raise a business, it's easy to do business with each other, and it's also easy to grow. And is this the case always in Europe? I would say no. So we have a lot of regulations, we have a lot of regulatory frameworks which not always help you as entrepreneurs in the business you are doing. And this is a responsibility we have. We need to do with less bureaucracy. So in Europe, our opinion is that Europe needs to concentrate more on those topics, the larger topics, and building a framework where it's easier for countries and cities and citizens to take their roles as grown-up adults and decide for themselves, but they find a framework which is supporting them in what they are doing. And why is this so important? Why do I think this is so important? If we look at the transformational process which has been there over the last 20 years, so I've started out in IT and telecom industry 22 years ago, only 8 months, 9 months, now I'm a politician. So we have been seeing radical transformations. And these radical transformations are like moving continents. It's not only in the physical world, but the digital transformation is moving which companies are among the top 10 around the world. And if you look, only in the 90s, there was none of the digital companies there. So there is something which is dramatically and fundamentally changing the way we live, the way we do business, and the way also we interact with the public authorities. And this is almost a digital transformation. It happens every 250 years that one generation cannot imagine how the previous generation has lived. And we have the luck to live in this situation. We know both. We know the time when none of us had mobile phones, only a few of you are as young as that they do not know this time anymore. And we know the time now, and this time gives us endless opportunities. But what we need is trust. We need trust in ourselves, and here the creative industry is very important for us. We need to create this trust in this environment and also in ourselves that we can do it, because generations before were able to do it. There was a lot of technological innovation, tech innovation before, and they all managed to do it. So why shouldn't we be able to do it? And we need you especially to help us in this, to communicate it, to change a little bit the view, especially in Europe. And this is different between the US and China and Europe. So we are always saying, okay, how many jobs are we going to lose? How many problems are we going to have because of the digital transformation? And fair enough, it is important to discuss about it. It is important to tackle this special topic. And it's important that we create jobs and opportunities. But it's also our responsibility to look little bit left and right and to both sides and see what is different there. And Harald, you have already mentioned when we were in China, Singapore, Hong Kong, we were seeing something what we can learn from them. And this is also which we can learn from the States. It is this trust in innovation and this willingness for change and this trust in this digital transformation. And to put the focus on this and add it with execution. So it needs not only talks, but it needs execution. And that is something also we can learn from the States because they're very good in execution. So I've always been saying if a strategy is 90% good and 150% execution is there, we're also above 100%. And this is something also you can help us both to get this mind of trust and this mind of executing and what we all know needs to be done. And what needs to be done is a lot of topics, digital competencies across Europe. We need them, and you need them in your creative industry especially. We need this entrepreneurial spirit, and we need to teach our children in the schools these talents. We need to take these talents and help them to work on these talents because they are in a highly competitive world and they will need it. And second, what we also need, we need the reskilling in companies. So if you all, or a few of you, many of you will run companies in the creative business, and the lack of knowledge and the lack of skills is one of the most important topics. So in the creative industry, you need people who can design games. By the way, I'm also cool. I was on Gamescom. So, so that is, we need new types of skills there. And we do not need it only in the creative industry and in the big companies. But we need it also, and today we are in the Chamber of Commerce, we need it in the small and medium-sized companies. And this is something which I say we need to work together commonly to help this SME sector to grow and to enter into this creative work, this digital transformation. This is key to Europe, as it is key to Austria. I'll give you an example. Austria has 99.8% of small and medium-sized companies. And when I say small and medium-sized companies, we really mean small and medium-sized companies. So these 99.8% are all companies below 250 employees. So we only have around 1,000 companies with more than 250 employees in whole Austria. Nonetheless, we have a successful economy and a great GDP, and we need to work on that. But there, we need to take SME with us. And this is also something maybe I want to ask you to discuss today or to take this idea with you. How can creative industries help, especially governments, but also the SME sector, to be transformative, to enter into this world and to form this successful ecosystem? Because this is needed. It's not only about the big companies and the startups or the ones in the creative industries. We need to take this 99% of companies with us. 50% of them are family-owned business. In Germany, even more family-owned business. So Austria is number 2 in family-owned business. Germany is number 1 in Europe. So we have this special situation which is different to the US and also different to Asia. And we need to use it as an opportunity. So I would like to ask you to take this point and to work on that. As a government, we have the responsibility to create this framework which is necessary. Flexible working hours so that you can work in the creative industry the way you want to work and to adapt to the changes in jobs and how the jobs are done in different types of industry. What we also need to do is easy access to money. So we have a lot of programs where we support industries and startups, but sometimes they cannot find the right support in the time they need it. So for the first time, we allow companies to pitch, and the boss of AWS, which is the organization, AWS, which is doing that, is here. So we decided to say, okay, if pitching is the one form that startups are used to, why don't we ask them to pitch for us and present their creative idea to learn as quickly as possible which program is the right program for them, and to match this very quickly. Time to market is our main topic, that we need to be better in that. We do not need more money for that. Of course, always more money is nice to have, but it's about the efficiency, how quick we get the money to the startups and to the mid-sized companies, to the creative industry. We have this special program in Austria. I do not know if you're aware. Harald has been working on that, and ministers before, which is very successful and is supporting hundreds of different projects. And I would like to give you a few examples of them. So you might know Pioneers Festival, where we were supporting from the very beginning this festival. And maybe you also know My Sugar, which is an application which is helping families and children and adults all around the world on their special health problems. And you may also know Rantastic, which was from the very start, from the seed financing on the very beginning, we were there. But we also missed something, which I was today in the morning at another event, which is the financing afterwards. So we're missing this one out, and therefore we're losing a lot of brain talent and also innovation after this first period. So they're leaving to Berlin, to Lisbon, to the US. And what we need to be able to is to keep these talents in Europe. And it's a European problem and it's an Austrian problem, and a challenge we have to achieve. So I'm very happy to be shortly only with you today, but I've asked my team also to report to me, and I would be happy if I could get the summary to find out what we could do different, what we could do next. So for me, it's our responsibility as a government to execute, not to invent new topics, because we exactly know, and experts like you are telling us for many, many years. Now it's time for execution, and it's also time that together we protect the future from the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Schramböck. Before we get to the next speaker, I also like to draw your attention to Eva Rudowski's work. She's a graphical designer, and Eva Rudowski is from the company Totally Dare, and she will explain to us in a couple of sentences what she is doing today. Do you have a mic? No. Please.
So, hello, good morning. Yes, I'm Eva Rudowski. I'm a graphic recorder, and I use illustrations and keywords to create a visual protocol of an event, of today's event, to help you memorize all the important details that have been discussed today. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eva. So please watch her work. Meanwhile, while there are no other slides on the screen, then the drawing is being projected on a real-time basis. Thanks again. And then I would like to introduce Mr. Tibor Navracsics, the EU Commissioner for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. May I invite you on stage?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to be here and to contribute to this ongoing discussion about the role of cultural industries in the future economy and also in society, because as just my predecessors in this pulpit emphasized, I think the societal aspect is as important as the economic one. Creative industries can make European economies more competitive, but at the same time, European society is more cohesive to opening up the channels of social mobility and ensuring a more efficient social integration and social inclusion systems in a society. So that's why I'm very happy to be here, and I just saw on the screen that there was one remark that we need art and culture to increase our innovative capacities. Probably that's why I'm here, responsible for art and culture at European level, but that's not my only hat today, because I'm also responsible for the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, which is the stronghold of innovation at European level. And hopefully it will be the most successful protagonist of the EU's competition policy, at the same time helping the member states and supporting all those local and regional activities which can end up in a higher level of competitiveness of the European economies. And this is the 8th European Creative Industries Summit, and it's fitting that this event takes place when we are negotiating the next multi-annual financial framework, the EU's future budget for the period of 2021 and 2027, a budget that should play a stronger role in supporting the culture and creative industries. Why? Because creativity is crucial for Europe. It drives knowledge and innovation, fostering economic and social development. And based on creativity and talent, the cultural and creative sectors generate economic wealth and shape European identity, culture, and values. They boost growth and create jobs, in particular for young people, while strengthening social cohesion. Investment in these sectors brings multiple benefits beyond the economic return. Culture has always been at the heart of the European project. This venture will only succeed if people across our continent develop an emotional connection to it and to each other. Culture is the one factor that brings that connection to life. The growing divisions between and within our member states are a stark reminder that we need to work harder on building bridges. Culture must be one of the key pillars of this bridge. Our ambition to work with the culture and creative industries to help achieve this is clear throughout the Commission's proposed budget. For example, in the future InvestEU program, the culture and creative sectors, together with audiovisual and media, will be eligible to receive funding. Moreover, in Horizon Europe, the European Union's flagship program for research and innovation, we have proposed to finance projects connecting cultural heritage with emerging creative sectors to foster cross-sectoral activities. At the heart of our efforts is the successful program to Creative Europe. We want to raise the budget to 1.85 billion euros over 7 years. And I'm happy to hear that the European Parliament is even more ambitious. They want to double the budget of the Creative Europe. Of course, I will oppose it. I'm convinced that I can count on the Austrian presidency in supporting this ambitious proposal in the negotiations. Funding needs to go hand in hand with policy priorities. This is why I proposed a new European agenda for culture this year. Key to this agenda is recognizing the power of culture and cultural diversity to make Europe more socially cohesive and economically competitive. It outlines how we want to boost job creation and growth in the cultural and creative sectors, for instance, by promoting arts and culture in education, encouraging relevant skills, and fostering innovation in culture. I would also like to stress that our ambition for the new programs is grounded in past experience. The current Creative Europe program and Horizon 2020 have proved vital in supporting cultural and creative industries. Let me give you some examples. Since 2016, the Cultural and Creative Sectors Guarantee Facility has supplied financial institutions with free of charge guarantees for loans to organizations in these sectors. The total budget amounts to 181 million euros, and 9 arrangements have been signed so far, providing more than 75 million euros in financing to 320 small and medium-sized enterprises, very often a financial lifeline for them. Another very successful initiative funded under Creative Europe is the EU network of creative hubs, which has helped young innovative creators to better connect with each other, to expand knowledge on business models, and to help to build an EU-wide community. As for Horizon 2020, over 68 million euros have been invested to promote innovation in the cultural and creative sectors. These funds financed a wide range of projects, for instance, on how new technologies and tools can drive and enhance creative processes from an idea's conception to its production. Promoting culture is about more than funding projects, however. We also support policymakers at all levels in making the most of culture as a driver of economic growth and social development in our regions and cities. A vibrant cultural environment not only fosters innovation, it also contributes to higher living standards in local communities, helping to make cities and regions attractive, an important factor in the global race for the best brains. To help policymakers and cultural operators at the local level harness this potential, the Commission's in-house science service, the Joint Research Centre, has developed the Cultural and Creative Cities Monitor. This tool, which we launched last year, provides comparable data on how 168 cities across the continent use culture to foster growth and cohesion. The monitor therefore helps these, as well as other cities, identify and build on their strengths and learn from each other. It is an excellent example of how the EU can support policymaking and creativity right where our citizens live. I'm looking forward to launching a mobile application of the Culture and Creative Cities Monitor later this year. It will be part of the legacy of the European Year of Cultural Heritage that we are celebrating this year in 2018. Because while the year is an important opportunity to promote culture and cultural heritage as a driver of social and economic development, we need to ensure they stay high on the political agenda in the longer term. That is why I intend to present an action plan for cultural heritage, which will address all dimensions of cultural heritage, including the economic and social one. It will be a roadmap for a more ambitious cooperation in this field for years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, culture and creativity play a vital part in building inclusive, fair, and resilient societies and a better Europe for the future. Never before has there been such a focus on these areas at the European level as there is now. Let us work together to ensure we make the most of this moment, to ensure they remain at the top of the political agenda well beyond 2020. I hope I can count on all of your help in making this ambition a reality. I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navracsics. And thank you very much, all of you three highly esteemed speakers. And I think when I try to summarize a little bit, maybe without the help of Eva, her drawing, that you all stress the world that is changing, that you all stress the need for innovation for Europe, also compared with the global situation with the US, with China, with Asia. And you also stress by innovation the importance of cultural and creative industries, in fact. And also you draw perspectives towards Creative Europe and the new Horizon program that's upcoming. Then before we continue, I would like to thank Minister Schramböck again. I think you are about to leave. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then Also. And you can stay or you leave? Oh, cool. All right, and also Mr. Navracsics, I would also like to thank you again. Thanks again. Because we're very glad that you could make time to be here today. And then we continue with the program, and we have another intermezzo. Next to Eva Rudowski, what would creative industries be without creative people? And next to Eva, we also have with us here Elwood Loud. And Elwood is a poetry slam artist. Elwood is from Austria, and he will therefore read you a very Austrian, a very energetic, a very positive, and a not at all ironic poetry slam text concerning today's topics. Elwood, may I invite you?
Thank you. Thank you very much that I have to be here. I'm a slam poet. Thank you. Just a few things before I start, so I know how tough I can be with you. And first, of course, a word from my lawyer. During the writing of this text, no animals were harmed who didn't really deserve it. Talking about animals, we are saving pandas from extinction. Pandas. Pandas eat only one plant and do hardly move. Did somebody ever think that pandas maybe want to go extinct? And we are not letting them? In China, a woman gives birth to a child every 3 seconds. That means we have to find that woman. And we have to stop her. The greatest danger to society comes from people who put exclamation marks on the word ironic. But I don't really mean that. I was told that I can be a little bit hostile on stage and should be more happy and jolly. That's it. I was asked to do for today's event a text about creative industries, and as an artist myself, I will take this opportunity and today will warn you all about the dangers of creativity. I have a very creative company myself. It's called Very Creative Company Limited. Because creativity needs to be controlled. The topic today is cross-innovation, which I think is about time, because the cross has not been innovated in 2000 years. But what did we get from that? A brand recognition of 98%. That's almost as high as Apple, who of course did that in 40 years in a larger market. By the way, 64% of all statistics are made up on the spot. 89% of people in the audience will believe that. But yes, there is some creativity involved in Apple, but I was perfectly happy before the iPhone came along and created billions of dollars of revenue and millions of jobs. We were fine before. We had everything, like the mobile devices from the 90s. Have you ever tried to change the language setting on one of those? It made you hate yourself. All right, I know, it's not about the cross, Jesus. But we at the very creative company Limited have always used all religions as an example for creative management. If things have to be done, the whole very creative company Limited management comes together in a meeting and we focus on the problem, we get down on our knees, we close our eyes and we pray for a miracle. Because we don't believe. We don't believe in things like cross-industry innovation, which I admit has produced, for example, the first fold-able baby buggy, which was actually created by Owen McLaren, a retired airplane engineer who based the buggy design on airplane technology. That can be seen as an example of cross-industry innovation or of a guy thinking a little too much about how to transport babies quickly to an airplane. Who can really say? Who can really say how Nespresso came up with the idea of using the magnetic centrifuge principle, which was used in laboratory mixers to create its famous milk mixer and foamer, the Aerocino. Imagine the creative moment when one of Nespresso's lab technicians, probably a Swiss guy called Hans Retto, again stayed late in the lab because his date, Kerstin, a dental hygienist from Zurich whom he met online, had to cancel at the last moment due to the fact that she urgently had to leave the country. And Hans Retto, all alone and dressed up in his best beige sweater, looked sadly into his magnetic mixer, which for many years now he illegally used to foam milk for his midnight coffee, and said to himself, "What if I sell this?" But as we at the very creative company Limited know, this is not so much an example of great cross-industry innovation, but for the mind-shattering power and energy which lives within a lonely guy's heart. How else did Nike came up with the shocks absorption system for its shoes? It was developed from Formula One technology and is designed to give your heel a very special shock absorption. The shoe is a huge market success, but the creative process must belong to this one guy from a very special heavyweight focus group who thought, "Lord, I so much want to leave the house and not eat this 9th turkey. Unfortunately, I am as heavy as a Formula One car. If only I had shoes who were able to support the weight of a Ferrari." How is innovation not driven by lonely guys when we have BMW introducing to us the iDrive, which is officially based on a joystick? Was this invented by a family father of 3? Who is socially well adjusted, loved by his wife and children, respected by his colleagues, and owns a house in the country? No. It was invented by a super lonely uber nerd gamer who wanted to drive his only 2 offline friends but failed his driving license test a spectacular 15 times and in desperation asked himself, "If only there was a car I could drive with a joystick." The same goes for early adopters who for some reason want to try out new ideas and technologies. Now you tell me if that does not sound like a homeless person with too much time on his hands. We at the very creative company limited know that it is much better to wait until other companies have tried out new ideas. And it is only when these companies have successfully developed these ideas into huge cash machines that we, at the very creative company limited, suddenly wake up from our creative coma and with an enormous amount of money and, yes, panic, try to desperately buy our way into the new market. It would, of course, be a possibility to institute an ongoing creative process within our company, because such a creative process itself would develop skills which could be used cross-sectoral, no matter what industry you are in, innovating the innovation, if you will. But why would we do that if we can and do rely on the wisdom of the last-minute hysteria? And not to forget the traditional and hugely popular blame game within our ranks. And of course, we know there are many companies who use crisis as an opportunity to develop something new, something exciting. But for us, at the very creative company limited, the principle crisis as an opportunity seems old-fashioned, since we have now for many years moved to the principle of opportunity as a crisis. This is in line with our other company principles of do not think outside the box, always change a running system, and yes, we could, but won't. But I digress. All I'm saying is, if you are not open to creative solutions and do not want to invest actively in creating innovative bridges between industries and disciplines, you better be ready to rely on the power of desperation. I know we do. Thank you.